Terence Stamp refuses to watch the new Superman movies. At 87, he won't even discuss Man of Steel or Henry Cavill's version. But it's not about ego or nostalgia. There's something darker behind his silence. His years in a controversial Indian cult changed how he saw the Superman role. His spiritual transformation revealed secrets about the franchise that disturbed him deeply. And his final confession about what Superman really meant to him explains why he's stayed quiet for so long. Terence Henry Stamp was born on July 22, 1938, in Stepney, one of the poorest parts of East London. His father worked as a tugboat stoker on the Thames, and his mother scrubbed laundry for shillings. The family lived in a small terraced house with no central heating and shared a single outdoor toilet with several other families. Winters were bitterly cold, and the children often slept three to a bed under old coats because they didn't have proper blankets. Life was harsh, and every day was a fight to get by. By the time Terence was 5, the war had already left its mark on London. In 1943, a delayed action bomb exploded only 3 streets away, blowing out every window in their house. He remembered diving under a shaky kitchen table while his mother shouted prayers above the deafening blast. 7 of their neighbors were killed, and the shop on the corner was reduced to rubble. The fear stayed with him for years. He had nightmares, wet the bed whenever the sirens went off during drills, and spent 47 nights sleeping in freezing underground stations as the bombing dragged on. Those nights planted the seeds of the spiritual search he would carry with him all his life. At 11, he managed to win a place at Plaistow County Grammar School, a rare achievement for a working-class boy. But instead of thriving, he shocked everyone by skipping 73 school days in his second year. He snuck into cinemas, spending whole afternoons watching stars like Gary Cooper and James Stewart. He studied the way they moved and spoke, copying every detail. When the school finally caught him, the headmaster caned him across the knuckles 12 times. His parents were crushed, since grammar school had been their hope of escaping poverty. But in 1951, when he played Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream, the local paper called his performance unnaturally compelling for such a young performer. For the first time, he felt a sense of direction. Money was always short, and by 13, Terence had to work before and after school. Each morning at 4:30, he delivered newspapers around Stepney for 2 shillings and 6 pence a week. In the afternoons, he helped his mother at the laundry, hauling 20-pound baskets of soaking clothes and running the heavy mangle machines that often caught fingers. At school, he became a target. His delicate looks made him an easy victim, and bullies mocked him with names like Nancy Boy. Once, 5 older boys dragged him behind the gym, shoved his head into a toilet, and flushed it while laughing. He came home with bruised ribs and a split lip, but there was no money for a doctor. Ironically, the very features that brought him so much pain as a boy would later make him a screen idol, admired by millions. When he turned 15, Terence secretly auditioned for the Webber Douglas Academy of Dramatic Art. He paid for the trip to central London with money saved from newspaper rounds, carrying a worn copy of Hamlet. But the panel dismissed him within 90 seconds because of his thick Cockney accent. One examiner even told him, "We train actors, not dock workers." Refusing to give up, he found a retired actress named Miss Penelope Hartwell, who gave him elocution lessons for 1 shilling each. For 18 months, he practiced every day, 2 hours at a time. The hard work paid off. His accent softened, his voice became precise, and he developed the polished sound that would later set him apart on stage and screen. By the time he was 18 in 1956, Terence finally enrolled at the Webber Douglas Academy, paying his way with scholarships and exhausting part-time jobs like dishwashing and construction. His tutors trained him for 12 hours a day in movement, voice, and classical performance. But instead of celebrating his progress, many dismissed him because of his looks. One instructor bluntly said audiences would never accept someone as handsome as him in roles like Hamlet. Fellow students nicknamed him Golden Boy, not as praise, but as a mockery. The constant criticism cut deep. Yet it also fueled his determination to prove he was more than a pretty face. His first real break came in 1959 with a small role in The Long and the Short and the Tall at the Royal Court Theatre. At just 21, he caused a stir by demanding $15 a week, the same as seasoned cast members. Producers were shocked, and newspapers called him arrogant. He settled for $8, still more than most newcomers, but his boldness left a lasting impression. The incident branded him as difficult, yet it also showed he refused to undervalue himself. In 1960, he auditioned for Peter Ustinov's Billy Budd. Against 300 other hopefuls, Terence stayed awake all night before his callback, memorizing the entire 120-page script. His effort stunned Ustinov, who gave him the role on the spot, but his triumph came with a price. Older actors on set put him through brutal hazing. Once, they locked him inside a trailer for 6 hours in sweltering heat, claiming it was a tradition. They hid his script pages and spread rumors that he was being replaced. Terence endured it all without complaint, knowing that proving himself was the only way to be accepted. Even after that success, poverty clung to him. He lived in a cramped Bloomsbury basement with 3 other actors, eating mostly beans on toast for 2 shillings a day. The flat had no heating or hot water, and in the coldest months he washed in freezing water from a shared sink. When he auditioned for the Royal Shakespeare Company, he delivered what he believed was his best-ever Hamlet, but the director rejected him, saying RSC audiences expected proper breeding and Oxbridge educations. It was a crushing reminder that class prejudice still blocked his path, no matter how hard he worked. By 1961, desperate for money, Terence turned to modeling. He posed for Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, earning $50 a day. The most controversial moment came when he agreed to a nude photo shoot by David Bailey for a European art magazine. The images were praised for their artistry and earned him $200, but he immediately regretted it. Casting directors began seeing him only as a body, not a serious actor. One even remarked, "Why hire him for Shakespeare when we've seen everything already?" That one decision haunted him for years, as he fought to prove he was more than just a handsome face. Terence Stamp's career began like a lightning strike in 1962, when he appeared in his very first film, Billy Budd. At only 24 years old, his debut performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. It was rare for a newcomer to reach that level so quickly. The film cast him as the Christ-like young sailor, Billy Budd. His performance impressed critics so deeply that he also received the Golden Globe for Most Promising Male Newcomer. A few years later, he took on one of his most demanding roles in The Collector in 1964. He played Freddie Clegg, a troubled bank clerk who kidnaps a young art student named Miranda, played by Samantha Eggar. Director William Wyler had even turned down The Sound of Music to direct this project. The atmosphere on set was tense. Eggar was fired 3 weeks into rehearsals because she couldn't handle the pressure, and Stamp stayed in character throughout, keeping a cold and distant attitude toward her to strengthen the realism. The stress was so intense that Eggar lost 14 pounds during filming. In the end, the hard work paid off. Both Stamp and Eggar won the Best Actor and Best Actress awards at the 1965 Cannes Film Festival. Stamp was not only building a reputation through his films, but also through his life in London during the early 1960s. By 1963, he had moved into the center of the city's swinging scene, forming a close friendship with Michael Caine and mixing with Britain's new wave of actors. He was photographed by David Bailey for the famous Box of Pin-Ups series and began a relationship with supermodel Jean Shrimpton in 1964. Together, they became one of the most photographed couples of the decade, described by Vogue as the faces of the 60s. A famous photograph by Terry O'Neill captured them in Stamp's London flat and was published in the Daily Express on June 29, 1965. Though rumors about scandals and arrests floated around at the time, little verified evidence supports those stories. What is certain is that Stamp and Shrimpton became icons of a cultural revolution. At the Cannes Film Festival in 1965, Stamp reached the height of his early fame. He won the prestigious Best Actor award for The Collector at just 27 years old, while Egger won Best Actress. Their shared win made the film unforgettable and proved that the exhausting production had been worth it. Wyler also received a Golden Palm nomination, further cementing the film's importance. While there is no solid proof that Stamp used his acceptance speech to criticize the treatment of women in the film industry, his growing reputation as a thoughtful observer of Hollywood made such rumors believable. The award lifted him into the ranks of international stars and led to new roles, including Far From the Madding Crowd with Julie Christie. In 1966, Stamp appeared in Modesty Blaise, a stylish spy comedy directed by Joseph Losey and based on the popular British comic strip. He played Willie Garvin alongside Monica Vitti in her first English-speaking role. The film, full of pop art style and colorful espionage action, was even nominated for the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Critics praised its look, but often complained about the confusing plot. Behind the scenes, disagreements between Lucy and the comic's creator added to the tension, yet the movie developed a cult following over time. A year later, he starred in John Schlesinger's Far From the Madding Crowd as Sergeant Frank Troy, opposite Julie Christie's Bathsheba Everdeen. The film had a budget of $3 million, making it one of the most expensive projects for Anglo Amalgamated. Despite its grand scale, Schlesinger reportedly struggled to get the performance he wanted from Stamp, and the two had a difficult working relationship. During or shortly after filming, Stamp began a high-profile romance with Christie, a relationship that drew as much attention as his films. Before Christie, his partnership with Gene Shrimpton had already made him one of London's most talked-about men. That same year, Stamp appeared in Ken Loach's Poor Cow, a gritty drama about London's working-class life. He played Dave, a criminal who becomes involved with a young woman after her husband is jailed. The film relied heavily on improvisation, with Stamp praising his co-star Carol White for her natural presence. Still, some critics felt the improvised dialogue sounded forced, even against the authentic London setting. By the late 1960s, Stamp was firmly part of the London scene, even sharing a house with Michael Caine on Wimpole Street. The two often joked in later years about their early struggles and choices. Stamp's reputation grew not only from his acting, but also from his brooding, charismatic presence that critics and fans alike found magnetic. In 1995, Empire magazine would name him among the 100 sexiest film stars of all time. But that aura had already been established 3 decades earlier. In 1968, Stamp shocked audiences with Pier Paolo Pasolini's Theorem. He played a mysterious visitor who seduces every member of a wealthy Italian family. The film's sexual and religious themes caused a storm. The Catholic Church banned it, Pope Paul VI publicly condemned it, and Italian authorities seized the film after its screening at Venice, accusing Pasolini of obscenity. Despite the backlash, Pasolini was later acquitted for creating a work of high artistic value. Stamp later joked that before the Pope's condemnation, the movie would have been seen only by 4 drag queens and Einstein, but the scandal made it an international sensation. That same year, Stamp starred in The Western Blue. He shocked director Silvio Narizzano by refusing to say lines he felt were unrealistic. His refusal forced the team to rewrite the script and reshape his character into a mostly silent gunslinger. The production faced challenges, from violent themes to the lack of big-name Western actors, but Stamp's commitment to authenticity gave his performance a haunting quality. In 1969, he took on The Mind of Mr. Soames, playing a man who awakens from a coma after 30 years. His performance was heartfelt, drawing on his own childhood feelings of isolation, but the film flopped. Critics dismissed it as empty and poorly executed, though Variety praised Stamp's ability to bring imagination and shading to the role. The failure hurt his career badly, especially as he was struggling with personal issues. The same year, his relationship with Julie Christie ended when she left him for Warren Beatty. Beatty had been pursuing her since 1966 and succeeded during the filming of Petulia. Their romance was intense but complicated, with Christie wanting monogamy and Beatty refusing to give up other affairs. For Stamp, losing Christie to Hollywood's most notorious playboy at a time when his career was faltering drove him into depression and heavy drinking. Later in 1969, Stamp worked with Federico Fellini on Spirits of the Dead. He played Toby Dammit, a washed-up Shakespearean actor who comes to Rome for an awards ceremony and only cares about the Ferrari he has been promised. The role mirrored Stamp's own struggles with excess at the time. His behavior on set was erratic, arriving late after nights of partying, but his performance stood out as one of his most haunting. The film, scored by Nino Rota, became a cult classic, with critics saying it was impossible to look away from Stamp in Fellini's surreal world. In 1970, Terence Stamp made a choice that stunned Hollywood. At only 28, after his career stalled following The Mind of Mr. Soames, he walked away from everything. His agent told him bluntly that people were now looking for a young Terence Stamp. Rather than face constant rejection, he left Hollywood behind. He traveled first to Egypt and then to India. By 1972, Stamp had completely cut ties with the film industry. His absence was so complete that rumors spread claiming he had either vanished or died. The timing shocked everyone, since he was being considered to replace Sean Connery as James Bond. Producer Harry Saltzman even met him at the White Elephant restaurant in London, telling him, "We're looking for the new 007. You're really fit and really English." But Stamp suggested changes to the Bond character that the producers refused to accept. His insistence on creative control cost him the role, and with it, a chance to stay at the top of the industry. As the rumors grew, the public wondered how a young star could disappear so suddenly. Stamp made a brief return in 1975 with The Divine Nymph, but the project turned chaotic. He insisted the script be altered to include spiritual themes that reflected his new beliefs. The producers were stunned, having expected the same actor they remembered, only to find someone transformed by years in Indian ashrams. On set, he often spoke about meditation, enlightenment, and philosophy between takes, leaving fellow actors bewildered. The disagreements became so serious that Stamp abandoned the project and returned to India, reinforcing his reputation as someone who had walked away from reality. In 1976, he joined the Sri Rajneesh Ashram in Pune, adopting the spiritual name Swami Deva Vitan. The ashram, run by the controversial guru Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, was infamous for its radical practices. Stamp shaved his head, gave up his possessions, and fully embraced the life of a renunciate. During his stay, he fell gravely ill from contaminated water and nearly died. He later described the experience as a turning point, crediting it with a deep spiritual awakening. The way he lived, his appearance, and his participation in the ashram's unconventional rituals shocked both Indian locals and Western observers. By 1977, his life had taken a harsh turn. After years without steady work, Stamp was broke. He had turned down high-paying roles to follow his spiritual path, and now at 39, he faced complete financial ruin. To make matters worse, political struggles inside the ashram led to his expulsion. The man who had once earned six-figure salaries in Hollywood was left begging for food on the streets of Pune. It was a devastating fall that showed how dangerous it could be to pursue spirituality without considering practical needs. His fortunes finally shifted in 1978. After 8 years without steady acting work, Stamp was called to London by director Richard Donner. He had no idea the meeting was for Superman. To his shock, he found himself acting alongside Marlon Brando, who was already filming his scenes as Jor-El. At 40, Stamp thought a comeback was impossible, but he was desperate for work and admitted later he couldn't annoy the business. He auditioned by performing directly with Brando, and the role of General Zod became his. On set, his years in the ashram influenced his behavior. When Donner made changes to Zod's dialogue, Stamp openly confronted him. Other actors stayed quiet, but Stamp, guided by his spiritual training, spoke up. Crew members were stunned as this forgotten actor challenged one of Hollywood's most powerful directors on a $55 million production. Then, the most expensive movie ever made. His courage to defend artistic integrity showed how much his years in India had changed him. His time with Marlon Brando became one of the most important parts of his career. Brando, who was paid $1 million for just 12 days of work, surprised everyone by bonding with Stamp. Between takes, they had long talks about acting, and Brando often defended Stamp's creative choices. Stamp called the experience a benchmark in my life. When Brando was later cut from Superman v2 due to a lawsuit, Stamp felt deeply betrayed, knowing how much the legendary actor had supported him. When Superman 2 came out in 1980, Stamp's line, "Kneel before Zod," became famous. But he was disappointed with how the movie turned out after Richard Donner was replaced by Richard Lester. Stamp believed Donner's version portrayed the villains as true forces of destruction, while Lester's version watered them down. Instead of epic world domination, the villains were shown terrorizing a small American town. He was also upset that Brando's scenes were replaced by Susanna York, which weakened the story and affected Brando's legal battle with the producers. Still, Stamp had no choice but to continue, since financial desperation left him with little power to resist. The role saved his career, but his return to Hollywood was not without conflict. In 1984, he starred in The Hit with John Hurt, but the production nearly collapsed when the two clashed during a crucial scene. Hurt accused Stamp of showing off his confidence from Superman, while Stamp insisted on sticking to the script's calmer approach. Their fight grew so heated that filming was stopped for 3 days until director Stephen Frears stepped in. Despite the trouble, both actors gave powerful performances, and the film introduced Tim Roth in his first screen role. For Stamp, it marked the beginning of a new chapter where he was no longer a vanished star, but a respected character actor with a career rebuilt from the ashes. In 1987, Terence Stamp appeared in Wall Street as Sir Larry Wildman, a corporate raider who ends up saving Blue Star Airlines from Gordon Gekko's ruthless takeover. Behind the scenes, his world was falling apart. While filming, his mother passed away, leaving him grief-stricken far from home. To cope, he began writing his memoir Stamp Album in his hotel room during breaks, using the pages as a form of therapy. The timing was haunting. On screen, he was playing a man caught in the world of financial power plays. Off-screen, he was wrestling with personal loss and noticing how greed can destroy relationships. The movie's famous "Greed is good" line, delivered by Michael Douglas, was based on real Wall Street figures. Stamp's character stood as a rare symbol of more ethical capitalism, offering a contrast to Gekko's destructive hunger for wealth. The following year, Stamp played John Tunstall in Young Guns. The 1988 film dramatized the Lincoln County War of 1877 and 1878. Tunstall was the British rancher whose murder sparked Billy the Kid's revenge. Stamp's quiet dignity gave the role real weight, showing Tunstall as a man who believed in reforming young men with guidance instead of violence. His performance set the emotional tone for the story, making the vigilante acts of the regulators more powerful after Tunstall's death. The movie became a hit and helped launch the careers of Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen, and Kiefer Sutherland. Though he started writing it during Wall Street, Stamp didn't publish Stamp Album until later. The book reflected on his rise during the swinging 60s in London. He wrote about his relationships with Jean Shrimpton and Julie Christie, his appearances in David Bailey's famous Box of Pinups, and the world of sudden fame. The memoir showed how glamorous living came with a cost, leaving him at times empty despite the success. It also helped him move from leading man to respected character actor. In 1994, at the age of 56, Stamp shocked audiences when he played Bernadette Bassinger, a transgender woman, in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Known for his intimidating role as General Zod in Superman, many doubted he could transform so completely. Determined, Stamp spent months preparing, studying transgender women in Sydney, and practicing walking in heels until his feet bled. The first time he appeared in full costume, even the crew didn't recognize him. His performance earned him nominations for both a BAFTA and a Golden Globe, and critics praised the transformation as one of the finest of his career. 5 years later, in Steven Soderbergh's The Limey, Stamp delivered one of his most powerful performances as Wilson. a British ex-con seeking the truth about his daughter's death in Los Angeles. The film used flashbacks from Ken Loach's 1967 movie Poor Cow, which had featured a young Stamp blending past and present to mirror Wilson's memories. His raw delivery and authentic Cockney accent made the role unforgettable. Although not a box office hit, the movie won critical acclaim and several Independent Spirit Award nominations. His fierce line, "Tell him I'm coming! Tell him I'm fucking coming!" became one of the most memorable moments in the revenge thriller genre. Stamp's connection to the Superman legacy continued when he returned years later to voice Jor-El, Superman's father, in the television series Smallville. This role reversal, from playing General Zod in Superman the Sehu in 1980 to becoming the hero's father, delighted fans. His deep, commanding voice brought wisdom and authority to Clark Kent's journey. For audiences who remembered his chilling demand, "Kneel before Zod," hearing him now guide the young Superman was a striking shift. In 2008, Stamp took part in Valkyrie, playing Colonel General Ludwig Beck in Bryan Singer's retelling of the July 20th, 1944 plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler. Acting alongside Tom Cruise, Kenneth Branagh, and Bill Nighy, Stamp portrayed one of the key conspirators from the Prussian military who opposed the Nazi regime. The film recreated the events of Operation Valkyrie and was shot in Berlin's Bendler Block, the very place where the real plot had unfolded. The movie faced controversy, but went on to earn over $201 million worldwide and received strong reviews. That same year, Stamp appeared in the action thriller Wanted. Though his role as Pekwarski was small, the film became a commercial success with its over-the-top action sequences and special effects, including the now famous curving bullets. His presence in the cast reminded audiences that even in ensemble films, he could leave an impression. As his career moved forward, Stamp became more open about the choices that had shaped his life. In interviews, he admitted that after his early fame in the 1960s, being told agents were looking for a young Terence Stamp, when he was still in his 30s, felt like a cruel joke. Disillusioned, he left Hollywood and spent years traveling, including time at an ashram in Pune, India. He later described how living under Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh had nearly ended his career for good. It was only with his return in the late 1970s and his casting in Superman in 1978 that he regained his place in the industry. Even in later years, Stamp's honesty continued to surprise fans. At 75, he refused to watch 2013's Man of Steel, bluntly saying he couldn't accept the new version despite Michael Shannon taking on his role as Zod. For him, the Christopher Reeve era remained untouchable, and his refusal showed how deeply he valued the legacy he helped build. Now at 87, Stamp looks back with a mix of regret and pride. Born on July 22, 1938, in Stepney, London, he admits that leaving Hollywood in the 1970s nearly destroyed everything he had worked for. Today, his net worth is $10 million, and though he owns property in London and New York, he insists his lifestyle is modest. He speaks of focusing on experiences rather than possessions and credits his difficult choices for shaping the resilience that kept him acting into his late 80s.